Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Normally we'd be recapping and reviewing one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette, but we've got a very special episode for you today. I'm Adam Dalton, here with my brother Evan.
By phone.
You sound great. And our fellow Walkerologist, Mr. Bob Leahy.
I'm also by phone, but it's one of those sweet car phones.
No, you're not by phone. Don't lie.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for this week's podcast here.
I think we all are.
We got a good one. Finally, right?
Yeah. Might be the first good one.
We'll let the listeners be the judge of that.
Yeah.
Evan, so you're without electricity, huh?
Correct. I'm without electricity or water because we have a well. So, yeah, a pretty nasty storm blew through the Northeast and knocked out power for 500,000 people in the eastern part of southeastern part of Massachusetts, and we unfortunately are within that group.
We are just glad that your priorities are with this podcast, Evan. That's all.
I mean, I my priority is mostly just so that you'll get off my case. So
okay, good. I'm glad we got that recorded. All right. Well, our guest today, phoning in from Los Angeles, California, is a legendary director who got his start script supervising on films like Marlon Brando's Mutiny on the Bounty, John Wayne's True Grit, and Steve McQueen's The Getaway. Through True Grit, he worked his way into the director's chair. Some of the shows he's directed over his epic career include Seventh Heaven, Baywatch, The Incredible Hulk, MacGyver, and over 300 episodes of Dallas, the original. And on Dallas, he was the man who shot JR, one of the most watched moments in television history. But for our purposes, it is his direction on over 70 episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger that makes him a true master of the medium. Mr. Michael Preece, we are not worthy. Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette.
Yes, here I am.
Thanks so much for doing this, man.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Where are you?
Yeah, I am in Nashville, Tennessee here.
Okay.
Yeah. And are you in the Batcave there?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Is that what you meant?
Brentwood.
Well, I heard the grandfather clock, so I didn't know if you're near the
that's it. Just
the Batcave.
I'm in my office. Yeah, no, I'm in a church. No, I'm in my office. It's just 6. That's why that went off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, yeah. And Evan and Bob are on the East Coast. Bob is in Lowell, Mass. And Evan he actually is without power. They had a nor'easter out there.
Yeah, I read about that.
Wow,
So
it made it all the way to the West Coast, huh?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I got all that stuff. Can I ask you, how old are you guys?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a personal question. So,
Yeah. So I just wonder because, because the shows I've done, like 25 years old girls or whatever you meet, they say, yeah, I used to work on Seventh Heaven, and they said, oh, yeah, my mother watched that. And then, and then you say, wait a minute. Did you ever hear of, who, Chuck Norris is? Oh, yeah, that's that old guy that sells, it's interesting that you guys seem interested in the shows from the past.
Yeah, I am 38.
Oh, okay. That's all. Yeah.
So,
I figured, yeah. Because I try to watch some of the stuff now. I have a tough time watching them. The stories. I don't know whether it's the writing, but and then lots of times I say, I did that story, except we did it before cell phones, so we had to stop at a phone booth.
Right. Yep, they're redoing all your episodes, but with cell phones now.
Yeah. I My wife and I, during COVID, we watched the entire series of Friends. And I had actually never watched it before, but much like any of those sitcoms out there, most of the comedy arises from some failure in communication out there, or any drama does too. And it was so much easier for there to be problems with communication back then because no one had phones or no one had cell phones.
Yeah, you cannot go anywhere, and if I phone you and you don't answer, basically you don't want to talk because all you have to do is answer your phone and say, I'll call you back, or, that kind of thing. And so there's no excuse for husbands. I couldn't get to a phone booth or whatever.
Oh, I didn't have any quarters, honey.
Yeah. I didn't have or a nickel way back.
Yeah.
If a guy wanted to go and hang out somewhere in a bar or something, but now everybody knows where you are.
Well, I think you worked on Walker, Texas Ranger as cell phones branched into the plots of the episodes. Like, I think there was actually an episode you worked on where Gage was on a plane that was being like remote controlled and taken down, and he was saved by a cell phone.
Oh yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The cell phones, I don't know what I'd do without it. I Google literally all the time. I'll read a book and they'll talk about, I just finished reading a book, and it was a beer that I had never heard of. And I looked it up, and I got some. It was funny.
Do you recall what kind of beer it was?
Yeah, it's an East Coast wheat beer.
That's pretty good.
It's darn good. It comes in a yellow bottle, but in the book, described it eating with like shellfish. And I said, God, that sounds good. So we have
is it an Allagash?
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
All right, we've done it.
I just never heard of it, and Bevmo carries it, so I keep some around in my little bar refrigerator. I like
excellent.
it.
Excellent. Yeah, one of the things we do in our podcast is not only do we talk about Walker Texas Ranger, but we oftentimes discuss the merits or shortcomings of a specific beer that we each drink that time.
Oh, good. Yeah, I drink one called Fat Tire.
Oh yeah, yep.
Beer, that's really for me. That's good because I like stronger beers. If you're going to drink a light beer, I don't. I like IPAs, most of them.
Respect.
Now, when you were in Texas, did you drink Pearl beer?
No. I probably did, but not very often. It's funny. I was down in Arkansas one time on a movie, and these guys who were young, I guess they were college kids because the movie was about college kids, and they said, would I go in and buy them beer? And I said, yeah, sure. They were like 20 or something. And they said, so what kind do you like? They said, sail beer. And they had such a thick accent, I couldn't understand what they were saying. And I said, sail, what is it, like pass through it? No, sail beer, whatever's on sale.
Whatever's the cheapest.
Yeah. Classic. We actually got to talk with Walker Texas Ranger script supervisor Mignon Monroe.
Mignon.
Yeah. And she mentioned that your mother actually started the Script Supervisors Guild. So I was wondering if maybe you could tell us a little about that and how you got into the industry.
I'll be happy to. Yes, my mother, in 1936, did that.
Wow. She
and two other ladies, our next door neighbor, who was because before that, only secretaries did the job. Because a director would bring his secretary onto the set, and she'd keep track of continuity. The script supervisor has the wrong name. It should be continuity.
Okay.
Because that's what you're in charge of. But the people wanted a more, it's like a petroleum engineer is a retail petroleum engineer is a gas station attendant. That's, so they wanted a more sophisticated name. People think that you wrote the scripts if you're a script supervisor.
Yeah.
We definitely had no idea what it was.
Yeah, we didn't know.
like if you walk through a door and you have a glass in your right hand and you come through the other door, maybe it's a month later, you're shooting it. But nowadays they have video so you can check it. But in those days, if you're on location or whatever, there was no way of knowing. So they had to rely on, and you would write down the glass was in the right hand held by the stem, and you'd have to make a little note about that or take a Polaroid or something. But when I started, they had no Polaroids. So you had to write it down or somehow remember. And, and then, of course, they would come to a point where they'd ask you a question, was my jacket unbuttoned or buttoned when I came through that door? And, we were in Hong Kong, say, I worked on a show called I Spy. And how far up was the zipper on my jacket when I came, Cosby and Culp. And now we're shooting in Hong Kong. Now we come back to shoot in Hollywood. And how far, you're guessing, kind of. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't have a tape measure that I remember. I used to call them script clerks when my mother organized. My mother wrote the bylaws for the Script Clerks Guild, it was called.
Wow.
Along with two women who did the job. And both of them had been secretaries to their directors.
There were some productions where they were like, oh, we don't want a female script supervisor. We want a male script supervisor. Is that kind of how you got into it?
Yeah, well, my mother got me in, because like if you're shooting on a submarine or something like that, I hate to do it now because you get in trouble for saying it, but more difficult circumstances, or if it was an all-male cast, bathrooms and things came into things, so they would hire a male.
We're talking about the misogynist past here. We're talking about history here.
Yeah. Now, there's no such word as a secretary, but this one woman, her name was Trudy Wellman, who lived next door to my parents. She said, well, we need to get this little group organized as a union or as a guild. And so they sat down and wrote the bylaws, but they were all women at the time. And then suddenly they make a submarine movie. Good example. And women were wearing skirts in those days. So you couldn't come down a
submarine stairs. Yeah. Probably not the best thing.
You don't want to. You got a bunch of sailors looking up.
Yeah.
You didn't wear your kilts either?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And those Scottish script supervisors. But there was a time right after the war, guys were coming back from being in the Army, and they had been, making films for the Army, and they wanted to get into the business. And a script supervisor was a good way to start. And a lot of those guys became well-known directors, like Sam Peckinpah. Yeah.
And you script supervised on Marlon Brando's Mutiny on the Bounty, John Wayne's True Grit, and Steve McQueen's The Getaway.
Yes, I did.
Unbelievable.
And a lot of others. Yeah.
It's just amazing. Yeah, all the stuff you've worked on. How did you transition into the director's chair? I was listening to one of your other interviews where you were talking about getting stuck in the back of a car or something like that.
Oh, that was a story. I was working on the streets of San Francisco, and I was ready to start directing. And there was a director named Seymour Robbie who directed Preece. They did a lot of running shots, and Michael Douglas would drive, and Carl Malden would sit next to him, and it would put 3 cameras on it, one on the hood of the car, and one on each side of the window to shoot through to, close up of Michael Douglas driving and a shot of thing. And so there was no room for a director, and there was no way to video at that time to sit in a place and watch it. So I would lie in the back seat, and I had the camera switch so I could switch on all 3 cameras, turn on the sound mixing panel and a Niagara. And in addition to that, I would hit the slate and I'd say action. And then they'd start doing their scene. And Michael was, like a race car driver. And some of them were, fast driving, some were things. But, you have all these lights in the window he could hardly see. 2 cameras, and they're acting, and then one of them would say a line that didn't sound right to me. I'd say that again, Carl, and he would say it again. You know, the intercutting, and we'd come back, and the director would step out and say, "How was it?" I said, "We got everything." He said, "Really? You're only gone 10 minutes," and we'd gone down hills, and they saw the stuff, and they liked it.
Yeah,
Quinn Martin liked it, and then one day Quinn shows up and. This was other directors, because none of the directors wanted to do what I was doing. And now I'd probably be the same way. I said, I don't want to get in that car, lie down in the back seat, take my life in my hand. And Quinn Martin came to San Francisco. He arrived on the set and he greeted everybody. I said hello to him. I didn't know him at all, but I'd seen him a few times. I went over to his car and I said, Quinn, something I would like to ask you. He said, don't ask. I know what you want. I'll take care of it. And like the next day, I got word from the production manager that I was directing 2 episodes from that. So, and he said to me, directors are a dime a dozen, but a good script supervisor are hard to find.
Wow. Okay. So your foot in the door was getting cramped in the back of a car and doing the dirty work.
Well, and also both Carl Walden and Michael Douglas, and there was a couple other people, directors directing Streets of San Francisco, who went to Quinn Martin and said, your script supervisor should be directing. The one was a guy named Billy Hale, a director, and a couple of others.
They vouched for you.
Yeah, they went to bat for me, actually. And they said, he's ready. I was 38 when I started directing.
Okay. I watched one of the the Bionic Woman. I didn't realize that was part of like the $1 Million Man franchise. Yeah,
kind of the same idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I was one
same
where
studio.
she got brainwashed at a hair salon. It was pretty classic. Which it's been known to happen. So.
Yeah, I think so. Find it.
But yeah, I mean, you worked on a ton of TV in the 70s, but I guess, notably, Dallas takes you to Texas, and I mean, we're a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast, so how did you get to Dallas?
Dallas was because of the producer, Leonard Katzman, had been a friend of mine for forever. He was an assistant director, and then he got a series, Dallas, as a producer, and he called me and said, I want you to direct the opening season. And I said, what's it about? He told me, these rich people in Texas. I said, oh, my God, no. I said, I'm doing the best series ever made. I'm doing a thing called The Runaways, which was about runaway people, not just kids or wives or husbands or grandpas. And I said, it's Quinn Martin's show, and it's really well written. We've got Robert Reed, who was from this family show. Anyway, I said, it's going to be a hit, and I don't think this Dallas show will ever make it. Well, we did 11 episodes of that. That's how wrong it can be. And Dallas ran for 10 years or something.
Wow. So when the Runaways kind of ran away, what happened there?
I don't know what was right after that. But I was lucky. I don't know if it was luck. But most of the shows I did multiple. A few shows I only did one episode, or they weren't successful. But I think Baywatch was the only show I only did one episode. And they never asked me to do another one. I don't know why that was. Probably
you were probably creeping around the beach a little too long.
Yeah, I was probably something wrong.
It didn't happen to be on a submarine, did it?
Baywatch? No, I did one about. I don't know what that was, but it was a great job, Baywatch, because I lived in Malibu at the time, so I could be to work in about 10 minutes or so.
That's like 2 blocks in Malibu, 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we shot right down, Santa Monica or something.
Wow. And you did The Incredible Hulk?
Yeah, I did that. One episode of that, I think. that was not a great experience for me.
Did you accidentally make Bruce Banner angry on set, or?
I have no idea. No, sometimes when you're doing a show, one time I was doing a show and they said, you kid around too much. I was doing a Knots Landing, and on Dallas, we never took it seriously at all. So there was never a moment that anyone didn't mess around, off stage or master, or certainly rehearsals. You could not get a rehearsal. And there's a wonderful Barbara Bell Geddes, played the mother. And she called me at night, the night before her big scene where she realized that her husband, Jock, she came to a realization he was dead because he had been missing, and the actor in real life was dead. But so we had this episode, and she was sitting at the dining room table, and she hears this verbal going on, and she just out of it, and she gets up, goes into the kitchen, and loses it, throws frying pans all over, and breaks dishes. And we had it all. We had rehearsed the whole thing where she was. The dishes were special plates that she would break, and throwing frying pans, and where they would go. So it was all staged. I mean, it was rehearsed and planned out. And so we're sitting at the table, and she calls me the night before and says, Patrick and Duffy and Larry Hagman, they have a tendency to fool around. She said, would you ask them to just be good boys and just do the scene as written? And I said, oh, yeah, I will. So I called Larry and Patrick and the rest of them and said, guys, if you could just behave, don't try to be funny. They said, oh, yeah, we agree. We'll do it. So we're shooting the scene in the master, and everything's fine. And all of a sudden, just before Barbara gets up to run into the kitchen to do her scene, a pea hits her right in the forehead. And what Larry had done, he took a pea and put it on a fork, like how you can do, and flicked it at her, and it hit her right in the forehead.
Right when she's supposed to do a really serious line.
Yeah. And then she picked up some mashed potatoes and threw it at him. So the food starts flying,
Oh,
I mean,
my gosh.
it was like 12-year-olds, but it was funny. And I remember one actor said, in Dallas, all you guys do is screw around all day, and we take our show seriously. And I felt like saying, well, that's why Dallas is number one, and you guys are 34th or whatever.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Because how can you take, a show like Dallas seriously? I mean, it was not.
It was over the top.
Above reality. Yeah, way over the top. I mean, there is nobody like JR. But it was popular.
And you were the guy that shot the scene of who shot JR, right? Is that right?
Yes and no. Yes, I was. But it took place over so many episodes. I was there when we shot him, but I did not know who shot him.
Okay.
And I was directing the show. The only people that knew were this Leonard Katzman and the film editor, which I thought was kind of funny. And because we had everybody walk up to this mark and shoot the gun. I'm glad nobody got hurt in that thing because what happened yesterday. The other day,
gosh, that's just awful. Yeah.
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 Yeah. But it was interesting that we had everybody. I mean, even Larry Hagman shot himself. The film of Larry doing it, he didn't have his tie was loose and it wasn't.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
They covered all the bases.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah.
And I did not know until I saw the show that Kathy did it. Leonard Katzman wrote the Bible for it, and he also wrote a lot of episodes, directed many, many of them. We were friends, and we'd have dinner or whatever. And somebody would say, oh, that episode they liked. And he said, did I direct that or did you? We couldn't remember, because they're all so similar. And he said, I think I wrote that, but I don't remember.
Did he produce some of Walker, Texas Ranger? Was I reading that?
Yeah, one season of it.
Okay.
And that was a situation that never because Chuck Norris was the boss. It was his show. He knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
And so whenever a producer tried to do stuff,
usurp Chuck Norris. Yeah.
To tell Chuck what to do. And Chuck would rewrite the scripts. Every Saturday morning, we'd have a meeting and rewrite the script, because by that time the director had decided where to shoot. And so you change it to fit, well, we couldn't find a barn next to a corral. Can we use a gas station instead, whatever. And we'd make those decisions. Well, Lenny wanted to be the boss, and because he had been the boss on Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
There was a great moment on Dallas. The actors always wanted to rewrite the scripts. And so one day a new script came out, and he gave it, distributed among all the actors, and it all had blank pages. And he said, well, you guys rewrite everything. Why don't you just say whatever you want? And they got the hint right then and there.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so you met Cherie J. Wilson on Dallas as well, right? You worked with her there?
Yes. Yeah. She started on Dallas. She's a wonderful person and an actress. She was the one responsible for me getting on Walker, Texas Ranger.
Oh, how did that play out?
Well, they had shot 1 or 2 episodes, and they were behind, and they had to, they were leaving scenes to be shot at a later date. And she said, they had me down there to Chuck, but we wouldn't be doing this. We'd be going home after 8 or 10 hours and all that stuff. And he said, well, who is this guy? So anyway, they hired me for 1 episode. I went down and we shot in the morning. Chuck Norris came to me at lunchtime and said, I want you to do every other episode. And he said, well, wait a minute, you haven't even seen film yet. How do you know? He said, I can tell. And so they hired me, and I did. Not every other episode, but for a few years I did.
I mean, and, you did, you've done, at least 70 episodes, right?
Yeah, I get them mixed up because some of them were 2-parters,
yeah.
And I would direct both of them, or sometimes they decided to make it a 2-parter after seeing them together, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, around 70, I guess.
Yeah. As you were saying earlier, some shows you'll do 1 episode a season, or is it common for directors to do as many as you did on Dallas and on Walker, or is that an anomaly?
Well, no, it's not. It's odd because it depends on what it was. I did a series with Tim Conway, and I directed every episode, but we only made 6 of them. But we were going to alternate, and then figured out I could do all of them because I got along with Tim Conway. A lot has to do with the actor feels comfortable. If you're a director that is really opinionated and wants it exactly your way, you're not going to work in television. You're not going to make it. There was a famous director named Mark Rydell who was a terrible television director because he was too strong. He was like, because TV shows, you've got to keep a continuity. You don't want one show to look a certain way and then the next episode to look completely different. Yeah. And that's what he did. So he went on to become a big time director.
Okay. All right.
Big features. Yeah.
So there's a kind of a difference between, like a feature director and television directing. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, you have to, features, you want everything perfect. But in television, you can kind of get away with the master's fine. We'll do it better in the close-ups. You don't have the luxury of doing it over and over. I don't know. There's been a lot of television directors who have gone on to do big-time movies.
Yeah.
Peckinpah, for one, and guys I worked with were more back when television first started. They would do some stuff and then go on to big films.
Yeah, and TV's becoming more like the movies every day here.
Oh, sure. Oh, my God. Yeah. Yeah.
you hit it off with Chuck, and he obviously trusted you. Do you think it's because you guys are, around the same age, and you also like to pump iron?
Yeah, we were both kind of physical. Well, he's more physical than I am, but he would come on the set in the morning, and if we were shooting in a nightclub or a restaurant or something, I'd walk over and I said, Chuck, if you get a chance, there's at the table over my left shoulder, there's really these were extras, real, local people that lived in Dallas. They just happened to want to be on the show.
Yeah.
And I said, she's kind of very pretty. He was single at the time.
Okay.
And he said, yeah, I see her. And then 10 minutes later, he'd be over there chatting up with her. Nothing ever came of it, but he was like that kind of guy. He liked girls.
All right. Okay.
I said, we're going to get in trouble someday. Now you would, because, you can't tell a girl she looks pretty anymore.
Yeah, it's a fine line.
Oh, no, it's
and unless you're married.
Yeah, right. Oh, then you better. Yeah, well, that's so true.
Yeah, it's okay then, for sure. But you work out every day still, you were saying. So I'm hoping
I have a I'm 85, so I have a trainer that comes to my house 3 days a week. And he's an interesting guy. He was the world's strongest man contest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was the world's strongest man. He's older now. He's 63, I think, but he won that. So he knows about training, and he weighed 290 when he was world's strongest man, and now he weighs 175. But he's in great shape.
Do you think he's the world's strongest 63-year-old guy?
Not anymore. No, because he's hurt himself too much doing that stuff. That's not healthy.
Okay.
And over 1,000 pounds he squatted with. I don't know if that means anything to you guys, but that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah, I think I had to top out at maybe 80 pounds.
Oh, yeah. Me too. Now I do squats with no weight. I just.
Yep.
That's true. If I drop my keys, there's about a 30% chance I'll get up.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
Did Chuck Norris ever hook you up with the Sportsman's Gym, or was it Total Gym?
Yeah.
The Total Gym.
Yes, he gave me one because they were shooting a commercial on our stage, and I walked over, and they didn't have a director. I mean, they had the people there from Total Gym, and Christy Brinkley came down, and she was there, and
so you were hanging out naturally.
So I was hanging out, and he had a monologue. So anyway, I helped him out a little tiny bit, and then one day they delivered one to my house, and I had it in Dallas, and then I used it a lot, but I still went to a gym there, aerobic center. But I also said it was a wonderful thing to dry laundry on, because you take your laundry out of the washing machine because it's you're gonna hang stuff on it. But then I brought it back to Los Angeles, and I had it here for years, and finally I gave it to a young man who really wanted it. There were twin Korean brothers who worked on Walker.
Oh.
And a couple of episodes. And their father had worked on Walker also. Kim. Their last name was Kim. One episode, I forget, there was a little Asian boy who was the new
Dalai Lama or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember that one. Yeah.
You remember that episode?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, they played. They were in a limo at a park where they were trying to kidnap him, and I don't know. They're tall twin Korean guys. And they were great, and so I gave them that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
nice.
It's good that it's in the family. So
are you saying that you effectively directed the Total Gym commercial unofficially?
Yeah, well, I guess so. One of them. This one,
nice.
I remember it was just a pitch that Chuck Norris did about it. And I think Christy, she was working out, and I said, and they kept, while we were lighting, they were shooting. And then he would have to go over and quickly change clothes to do the scene with, a Walker. Maybe he wasn't in every shot at that time. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, I mean, I was shocked they didn't have a director. And or maybe Chuck said, "Oh, just we'll get it done." I mean, it was very simple. It wasn't like dollying and shots. It was basically him doing all of the exercises.
Yeah. Was there a continuity between sweat stains? Help you better spray some water there, that kind of thing.
Yeah, probably. I don't. Yeah. Yeah. Chuck never. Chuck was really good about it. He didn't sweat. And, lots of times we're down there and it was hot, and he would have to wear that hat and his long sleeve shirt and, pants and a gun belt and all that stuff. Kind of difficult. We'd be sitting with air conditioners blowing on us, and he's a tough guy. I mean, he's a real thing. There's nothing fake about Chuck Norris, as he got older, his spinning heel kicks and stuff like that got less and less with the double, but he had a very good double, a couple of them. But he could start it. He could still do it, but why? Why kick your leg way up in the air? And, maybe pull a muscle or and then shut down the company. There'd be no sense in that. But as far as I remember, I don't think he ever got hurt
on set.
On set, yeah.
Okay. Hey guys, Adam here. Just going to hit pause on our conversation here for a second. We've got an eager corporate sponsor. They paid a lot of money, and I'm proud to say that the sponsor for this podcast is Roundhouse Roulette, which you may or may not be aware of. They're a Walker Texas Ranger podcast. They recap and review epic episodes of Walker Texas Ranger. And they've asked me to tell you, if you dig what they're doing, they've got ridiculous action figures and Chuck Norris vintage items on their website, roundhouseroulette.com. And they even have a Patreon page if you feel so inclined. But really, the biggest way that you can help them out is just pass on the good word and share it with a friend you think might dig it. That's what they've asked me to try to convey to you. But picking up here with our conversation with Michael, he's going to talk explosions. He's going to talk insider Walker Texas Ranger stories. There may even be a bombshell revelation that's going to change the way you watch Walker Texas Ranger from here on out. But picking up here, we're going to try to pin him down as the director of Walker Texas Ranger on what it is, because we're still trying to figure it out. I guess one thing we always kind of wonder is, how would you describe Walker Texas Ranger to somebody if you were just saying, hey, this is what this show is?
Well, so there's a at the airport, at the small airport in Dallas, there's a picture of a Texas Ranger, or a statue of it, not a picture, statue of it, and it says "One Riot, One Ranger." And when he first started wanting to do this thing, Lone Star McQueen, what was it? I forget the name of that.
Lone Wolf McQuade, yeah.
Yeah, Lone Wolf, and that was about a Texas Ranger, I think. So it was in the works always that he wanted to be a straight shooting, honest Texas Ranger. But I would say that it was a series about fighting and loosely connected by a story, as opposed to, I mean, mainly the show was about people wanted to see him kick butt. And and I think they, more than Kiss Girls, the first producer, he did not believe that Chuck and Cherie should be together at all as a couple, because the women who watch the show say, well, I might have a chance to marry Walker Texas Ranger. the next set of producers went against that. And they ended up getting married and having a baby and all that stuff. So,
right.
Yeah.
But they delayed that for quite a while in the series.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, we might have an answer.
That's why, maybe.
The advice on all movies and television shows is keep the leading man single and the leading lady single, because people, the audience out there, and I'm not saying they're naive, because they think they still have a chance. And if they're married and with 5 kids, and you don't say, I don't want to marry Chuck Norris.
Yeah, he's got some baggage.
Chuck, I think he really could have been elected into politics, especially in Dallas. Like if he had run for governor, he could have probably become governor, because when George Bush was running for governor, he got all the adulation.
Chuck Norris did?
Yeah. Now,
well, he campaigned for him, right?
Yeah, I think he did for governor and president. But then he also campaigned for another guy. I forget his name. The guy from Dallas. Oh,
Huckabee, right?
Oh, yeah, Huckabee. Yeah. Sorry.
Yep.
So I guess but describing the show itself, it's a Texas Ranger who does karate. That's kind of absurd, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, how does, and then interestingly enough, which made us all giggle, is everybody could fight and fight Walker and knock him down. And we would get actors. There was an actor, really a good actor, and he showed up on location, played a bad heavy, a really bad guy, cocaine and everything, and he shows up and he gets out of the car and he's walking with a cane. And so he said, well, they hired him in Hollywood. We had nothing to do with it in Texas. And he comes down and now he's supposed to have this big fight with Chuck. And I said, well, the guy is a cripple. And Chuck Norris is Chuck Norris. So how do you have a full out fight with this guy who can hardly walk and he's 75 pounds overweight? And yet somehow we did it. And the guy used his cane to fight off Chuck. But
he was a cane marksman.
Oh yeah. But was it better to get a guy who could really fight, or is it better to get an actor and double him or whatever? But I'm friends with a guy named Tim Thomerson who came to Dallas, and he did a big fight with Chuck, and he did it all himself. He didn't need a stuntman, but yet he's a good actor too. And so that happened off and on. But and then every woman could fight. How they all, cocaine dealers and stuff like that, they still knew how to do a spinning heel kick, On my way to become a criminal, I went to karate classes.
Yeah.
Now, my brother Adam and I, we watched Walker when we were growing up, and we were, in New England. And I think we were just under the assumption that everybody in Texas learns martial arts at a young age. That seemed to be the only reasonable explanation.
I wondered about a gas station. I mean, everybody was a martial artist on Walker. I mean, they go, they'd be robbing a 7-Eleven or something like that. And the guy behind the counter all of a sudden would do a backflip and, how do you learn to do that?
Well, so this brings us back to it. Like, what is the tone of the show? Because if you just base it on the leading man, Chuck Norris, this is incredibly serious. He doesn't emote a lot. So it's like, has this weird groundedness through him. Like, this is real. This is serious. But the craziest stuff is happening around him. And I almost feel like the other actors have to kind of amp up their performances just a little bit to compensate for Chuck. You know what I mean?
when we started that series, Chuck had done movies. Chuck had the ability, but he got better. And part of it was he had a dialogue coach with him constantly to run it because he had difficult time remembering lines, and to just get them out. Say Clint Eastwood or whatever, and Steve McQueen, say less, and Charles Bronson, all those guys cut their lines and just do it with a look. And Fred Dreyer too. All those guys said, "Well, can't I just do it with a look?" And toward the end, he had become really quite a good actor. I don't know whether he could play anything else but Walker Texas Ranger, but he'd become very good at that. And I'll give you a for instance. We were shooting a scene where he was teaching a martial arts class to a bunch of kids. This was when they tried to do the spinoff.
Oh yeah, Sons of Thunder. Yeah,
Sons of Thunder. And he was teaching a class, and he was wonderful. He walked through this bunch of kids lined up in a gym, indoor gym, and he was like telling them what to do and how to do this and that. And I said, Chuck, if you could do that in every scene, just be that guy, I said, you'll win an Academy Award because you really, really nailed it. He said, yeah, I know. He said, but I'm in my element there. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, he'd been doing that since the 60s, right? Teaching karate classes, so.
Yeah, he taught my kids, which was karate school. I don't know whether he taught them so much, but he was there all the time.
Wow.
So do you think your comment on that led Chuck Norris to try his movie acting skills again with the film Sidekicks, which is kind of teaching somebody martial arts?
I don't know whether it did or not. I have no idea. I wish I could say, yeah.
Yeah, because that's a royalty check right there for sure.
Yeah.
If it was.
I love that. I didn't know. What was Sidekicks? Was that a movie?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's his attempt at Karate Kid, I think. He's got like a young ward that he's teaching.
Yeah, I remember it now. I never saw it, but I remember he did that, yeah.
But all right, so I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here. So it's over-the-top tone, but you directed these episodes, and you're saying the main priority here is we want to see Chuck Norris just wreck some houses, right? We want to see him throw some spin kicks, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's a priority. But then we get, in a lot of these episodes, kind of like a slid in there, like kind of like a bitter pill moral lesson.
Yeah, that was Chuck's ideas. I think mostly the moral issue.
Yeah, which they're good. It's just sometimes it's like a weird juxtaposition between we just want to see some explosions, and then we have this extremely serious topic in there too, and it's like it's quite a juggling act.
So much of it was drug addiction. I mean, he had that theme, "Kick Drugs Out of America," and he tried very, very hard. And that was him. I mean, he really believed in that. I'm sure he still does, because we would be down there, and it seemed like not every episode, but a lot of them had to deal with drugs.
Yeah, drug dealers or gangs dealing drugs or stuff like that.
Yeah,
or semi-trucks filled with drugs.
Yeah, yeah, and the human interest stores. Like where we had orphans, and then Chuck, they made one where I did it, where a Western one where he fell in love with a singer in a nightclub or a Western club in Texas, and then a great big guy was going to beat her up, and then he ends up committing suicide at the end. That actor.
Oh wow!
It was a pretty good episode. But then Chuck said, I don't want that anymore. I don't want to be vulnerable to kissing girls. Because he had to actually kiss her. It weakened his position.
Okay, yeah. He wanted to be the strong silent type.
He didn't want to, pining for her, because we had him sitting at the bar thinking about her, and they had flashbacks to when they were in love.
Okay.
I mean, we hired a very pretty girl who could sing, and it was not about Walker solving a crime. It was more about this girl and then the guy who beat her up, who
man.
was quite a good actor. I think it's something to do with dreams.
Okay, yeah, we haven't watched that one yet. I'm sure we'll get to it at some point.
Yeah, look that one up. It's a good one. You know, it made Chuck look weak because he was vulnerable to a girl.
Oh my gosh!
So we actually saw an episode where an Irish assassin tries to seduce Walker's character, and he does not fall for the ruse. He even is able to sneak a little kiss in, but he's always got the upper hand in that relationship. So that's interesting.
Did I do that one? I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't think you did that one. I don't see it on the list.
I don't think I did.
Probably not. I would think you would have had an issue with the really awful Irish accents that were happening. But
okay. Yeah.
It kind of seemed like the operation was like Chuck's family run thing, right? I mean, it's really a lot of his family was involved with it, and it being in Texas.
Yeah, his son Eric was a stunt coordinator, and Eric's best friend and Chuck's friend was a fight coordinator, and his other son Mike played parts off and on, and then his daughter, Chuck's daughter, in the office, she worked.
Since you've worked on so many different productions, was Walker kind of run differently than other TV shows?
Not really. It was, we had very good production managers and a producer, a guy named Gary Brown, took over after a couple of years. We had another guy, Craig Bodine. He left the show, and Gary was going to go down to San Diego to work on a thing. And I said, don't quit because they're going to make you production manager. And he did that for a year or so. Then he became the line producer and did the last 4 or 5 years as a line producer. So Chuck, if he liked you, like, you know, somebody like Gary, you stayed with the show. It wasn't you had to do it his way, but as long as you didn't run against him, you know, or say bad things about his brother or something like that. Aaron Norris took over the show. It was the best thing that happened to the show because there were so many producers, and when Aaron took over, he straightened it out. Because he was like his brother, you know, kind of a tough guy.
Yeah,
a martial artist,
stunt guy,
fighter, and
yeah.
And the show was surrounded by that. Well, there was a lot of macho stuff going on there.
I can only imagine.
Testosterone galore. Yeah.
Now, you say that people weren't allowed to badmouth Aaron Norris. Did that actually happen to somebody?
Yeah, a couple of times.
And in fact, Evan, he's coming for you right now, so you better lock your door.
He'll never find me.
Yeah, you know, people would say, remark, and he never knew who the spy was. We always had that. You know, be careful of what you say because they'll get back to you. Very first year, I made a mistake. They said, don't let Chuck do something or other. And I said, you know, on the set, Chuck's the boss. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
You know, and the guy who was the executive producer, somebody told him that I had said that. And they called me in the office and said, you know, I hear you said that Chuck's the boss. And I said, well, yeah, he is on the set. I'm not talking about, the director should be the boss on the set, but in this case, it's Chuck Norris. And you don't want to, so you do it his way, you know, unless you have a good reason not to. I mean, you know, he was a reasonable guy. So, you know, I go way back to, you know, I worked with Marlon Brando quite a bit. And, you know, Marlon Brando could suggest doing anything and they would go for it. And it was awful. I mean, because nobody would ever say, no, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
They were afraid of him. But Chuck was not like that. I mean, most of his ideas were pretty good.
Okay. But, I mean, Marlon Brando didn't know karate either. So
No.
so,
but I wish I could answer your question about what was the show. It's a show about Chuck Norris playing a Texas Ranger who loves to fight. He would throw a rifle away just to fight the guy rather than shoot him or arrest him, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he did. It was basically a shoot 'em up show. I don't know. I've never talked to anybody who didn't like the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and do you remember Conan O'Brien? I think it was, had a thing where they would pull an arm and they would have a scene from Walker, Texas Ranger.
Oh yes, please tell us what you think about that.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was funny. You know, do you remember that at all?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I thought Conan, he did one where they kept, I liked it because they paid me a little money for the film clip, but they they had one where the little boy had AIDS, you know, that was dying.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Have you've seen that episode, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Lucas. Yeah.
And they made fun of it, you know. I mean, Chuck was very good in that, I thought, as an actor.
Yeah.
When he gave the speech at the funeral, and it was funny. I was sitting there, and Aaron was on the set that day, and Chuck's up there at the podium, you know, doing his speech, and I thought he did a very nice job.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron's sitting there, and he finished. I said, "Cut." Now I don't know whether to say cut, print, great, and his brother's saying, "Well, you're going to print that." You know what? I don't like producers on the set because you know if you say, "Oh, I thought it was great," and they say, "No, it wasn't good." But Aaron's he was good. I was good friends with Aaron.
He hasn't come for you yet.
No, I haven't.
So I guess so on that Lucas episode, I was listening to an interview you did, and you were saying that a lot of the times on TV shows, a lot of the actors kind of know what the show's vibe is, and they kind of have their lane to stay in, and you just kind of guide them. But when you have like children who act, you have to be a little more hands-on. Was that the case with the Lucas episode with Haley Joel Osment?
Yes and no. His dad was with him and coached him. He knew exactly what he was doing. That kid was a mature actor.
He does an amazing job in that episode. Yeah.
I would go through his dad rather than going up to the kid. I think his dad was responsible for that performance.
So you traveled a bunch. You did some shows in Louisiana, right?
Yeah, we did a Bayou show.
Road to Black Bayou.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, we went down there. That worked out beautifully. I love that. I love getting on those boats and driving. I got to drive one. Propeller boat. You know, we shot there. We shot in Utah. We shot in Colorado. It was a great job for me. Great experience. I had been working on Dallas, Hunter, and MacGyver all at the same time, back and forth. And all three were canceled.
Ooh.
And suddenly I didn't have a job.
Oh.
And you know, Hollywood, you're only as good as your last job. And everybody wants you when you're working, but when you're not working, nobody. And I said, I'm never going to work again. And then Cherie came through and recommended me for Walker, and I did Seventh Heaven after that. That was an odd show to work on, Seventh Heaven.
Well, especially after Dallas and
after
Walker,
Walker,
Ranger.
yeah. Dallas and Walker, and all of a sudden, there you got to direct a lot because the kids and the twin boys.
I was reading on the MacGyver project that you said that was one of your favorite shows to work on. Yeah,
it's the only show. I went to my agent and I said, I watched this show, MacGyver, and I really like it, and because I thought it was fascinating. And he said, well, let me find out, and he got me a job on it. So it's the only time I ever asked to get on a show. I did quite a few of them. It worked in Vancouver, but it didn't work in Los Angeles. I don't know what the difference was. And Richard Dean Anderson didn't like the rain very much. And if you're in Vancouver, you better like the rain.
Right.
Yeah.
I watched the episode. There was like a Nazi who was stealing art and was going to take over like 10% of America. But you had mentioned that you've done a lot of neo-Nazi episodes in your career, including on Walker, right?
Yeah, I think we did. Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, I remember that one. We had a show where there were all these Nazis, and we had this stuntman, Gary Morgan, who was a stuntman, and he's Jewish for one thing, and he's playing this neo-Nazi guy with his Nazi uniform, and the actor who played the leader of it was wonderful. That was a very funny episode. It was fun to work on. And because we were having all these guys, and especially the Jewish was playing this. And this one guy, Gary Morgan, is a well-known stuntman, and he was doing a Jewish accent when he would say "Heil Hitler."
Oh no, my gosh!
He was doing like Mel Brooks,
Yeah. Oh,
right.
What do you think about all your shows that you worked on, like MacGyver? I think you worked on Hawaii Five-0 too, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't direct those before.
And then Walker, they're all being rebooted.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel proud that it's like?
Well, yes, I mean, I watched Hawaii Five-0, the new one. I thought they did okay. Dallas, they brought back half the cast, which made no sense to me. Which made no sense to me at all. I didn't care for that. Walker, I don't know. Now they have a new series just called Walker.
Right.
But it's not the same.
There's no explosions. There's no fighting. He's not. He's no total Jim.
But the reason Walker worked because he was Chuck Norris. We said that now. I mean, because he was a real thing. He really was a world champion.
Yeah. That's what powered all his movies and eventually to Walker Texas Ranger. Right around the time the Conan O'Brien lever came out, they had all those Chuck Norris jokes and all that stuff. He became like a folk hero.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it made him famous. When they make fun of you, you've made it. And it was Dustin Hoffman who said, "I heard a rumor I'm gay, so I know I've made it." I knew I'd become famous when I heard a rumor.
Yeah. We try to walk the line here on this podcast because we love the show, and it's just outlandishness is the best. We love it.
Yeah.
But there are some people who take it at face value. Like,
well, if you analyze Walker Texas Ranger, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's far fetched. That everybody could fight.
The real Texas Rangers aren't typically hanging off of helicopters.
Yeah, if you ever saw one, have you ever known one? I mean, some of them have bellies that they couldn't even climb up a stairway without getting out of breath.
Yeah.
And it's like any police. I don't know how some of them pass the physical, but Chuck, here was a guy who was over 60, being photographed with his shirt off, and looked good.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. Sitting in a sweat lodge. Remember that episode?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like in the lotus position, a sweat lodge.
Walker Texas Ranger is still in syndication like crazy, and it's been on like the Hallmark Channel where you have all this heartfelt stuff, and it's also been on like your Grit Network, your all-night testosterone dude movies like channels.
Yeah.
How does it transition between the two? It's crazy.
It is. It's an amazing that they keep running it. I mean, there are a lot of shows that they keep running, Seinfeld or something like that.
Yeah.
But Walker, he just, I don't know. And most kids even know who he is.
Well, man, I appreciate you giving us so much of your time.
Yeah, I'm happy to. It's nice to talk about it. Yeah. I wish I had something bad to say about Chuck, but he was very faithful to his. I don't wish I had something bad.
Oh yeah,
but
that's definitely going on the podcast. So,
but I mean, he treated all of his people really fairly, and I liked Aaron, I liked Michael, and Eric was special. He was like he had a father, but I felt like he was sort of like my son.
Yeah.
And then he directed a lot of shows toward the end on his own.
He's also like a NASCAR driver, right?
Yeah, I think he does. Yeah.
And you guys did like a NASCAR episode of Walker, I think, that you might have worked on.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, I remember, that's the easiest stuff to do. You put a camera on a car and have them drive around the track. You get a bunch of good drivers, and you let somebody else stage all that stuff, weaving in and out. But I remember that day I had a Jag convertible, and I got out on the racetrack, and I was waiting in the morning, for light or whatever. And I said, I'm going to take my car out there on that track and just drive around, see how fast I was going. So I looked down at the speedometer, and I was going, nobody else on the track or anything was, I don't know how long it was, a mile or something. And I looked down at the speedometer, I was going 75 miles an hour.
You're like, that's good enough for me, right? I don't need to go faster than that.
Yeah. I thought, oh my gosh, here I am driving my own Jaguar, so I don't drive fast.
Yeah, that's about my speed. So
yeah.
Can you tell us about? I heard you talking about the situation where you guys actually blew up like houses and stuff. How did that come across? Because that happens all the time.
Oh, there was a house, and a lady who owned it was a writer of love novels. Those are. Those novels.
Romance, Fabio romance novels.
Yeah, with him on the front. And her last name was Brown. I forget her first name. But anyway, so we had had ads all the time. Said, if you want your house destroyed, Walker can do it. And, we would come out there and fill the house with explosives and blow it up, and then they would rebuild the house. So this one house we get to, and it was a big house. It was, a lot of bricks and everything. So the special effects guy said, we can't do this with our normal explosives. We got to use dynamite. So we go to this house, and they filled it with dynamite. He talked about this poor woman that got murdered. I mean, that house really collapsed. It wasn't just our special effects guys. They hired a demolition team for, tearing down buildings.
Wow.
And it was horrendous. And it worked. We put more smoke in and then had Chuck and Clarence Gilliard come running out of the building and dive into the foreground. We had them standing by. We didn't move the cameras after the explosion. Now they would say, well, was it really safe? Because we hadn't sent anybody in to see if the dynamite had all gone off. But they assured me it had. And so it looked good. When you see it on film, you'll see them run out of that house. But we did that at a couple of houses. I guess they saw an ad. Well, we're going to remodel our house. We might as well.
We don't want to pay for a demolition crew. Let's just have Walker pay for it.
That's a clean slate.
Yeah.
So this was romance novelist Sandra Brown, I think it is.
Yeah,
is that
Sandra
right?
Brown. Yeah. We took her house. Yeah.
You just blew up her house. All right.
Wow. We just watched an episode of Walker that you directed where at the very end of the episode, you guys blew up like this pink double wide trailer.
Oh boy. Yeah.
That might have been a similar situation. Evan was commenting. He's like, the moment I saw that trailer at the beginning of the episode.
Oh, it's going to blow up.
Yeah.
When you see somebody driving a Lincoln Town car and they're they're a wealthy guy, it's going to get blown up or wrecked.
Can you explain to us the internal logic between the we call it the super shot when Chuck Norris is faced with a car that's coming at him. He pulls out his 6-shooter, shoots one bullet, and the thing just blows up.
Yeah.
What
Yep.
Did you guys have a term for that, or what's the?
No, we just he just was a better shot than the bad guy shooting at him. And I don't know what would really happen if you hit a gas tank on a car, if it would blow up. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Why would it?
I think Mythbusters tackled that. We'll have to check that one out again and see. But I suspect you're right. If cars blew up that easily, there'd be a lot more car explosions on the road, I think.
Yeah, I was down in Mexico, and I was in a car accident in a van. A guy was driving, and we flipped over, and we ended up, I forget whether it was upside down or on the side, but I crawled out, and I was hurt. My head was bleeding and everything. But the car never caught on fire at all.
It's probably just proximity to Chuck Norris. That's really probably what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that.
There's the other thing he does is the vehicular transference is what we call, like, he goes like one vehicle form of transportation to another, like he's done hot air balloon to hot air balloon. He's gone,
horse to car. That's classic.
Helicopter to a pickup truck was my favorite.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Kenny Gibson was really good at that kind of stuff.
Can you talk about him a little bit? The more we hear about Kenny Gibson, the more he sounds like the most interesting man in the world.
Kenny Gibson could fly into a football stadium on a jetpack. You know that?
Yeah.
He did it a lot. In Dallas, he would fly in with a jetpack on his back. He'd start outside the stadium and land in the middle of the field. And also, he did all of Chuck's riding stuff, where he rode a horse. He doubled him in most everything except fights. They had a fight guy, and they'd fly in from Oregon. Forget his name.
Yeah.
But he would do Chuck's fights for him.
Okay.
The parts that Chuck didn't want to do. He owned a karate studio somewhere in Oregon, I'm not sure. And he grew his hair exactly like Chuck. Chuck, had pieces of hair, because he didn't have that much hair. But this kid had a full head of hair, and Chuck's makeup lady, Barbara, cut it exactly like Chuck Norris. And you could photograph him from the waist up, practically. He looked so much like Chuck.
Wow. So I guess that would explain why Chuck's hair color and style changed all the time.
Well, as it ended up, he wore a complete wig. I mean, the whole thing, because it was just easier to put that whole thing on rather than, filling in bald spots.
When did that start?
Practically from the beginning, his hair was thin.
Okay.
Yeah. I noticed that he was wearing just a little bit of a hairpiece in the back.
Yeah.
The clip-on kind of thing. And then it became, more and more. And finally, the last few years, it was a complete helmet.
Okay.
It was much faster because they could just pop it on, a little glue and
it's perfect hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you were talking with Sam Williamson.
Yeah. So.
He was a character actor on Walker. That's how you met him. Is that right?
Yeah, he did a couple of episodes. Yeah. As a kid, a sympathetic bad kid in one.
Yeah, that was one where there was a bunch of preppy kids beating up homeless people.
Yeah, they're beating up homeless people. Yeah. but they got their comeuppance, yeah. And then God, you guys are bringing back all that stuff I forgot about.
Oh, man.
My friend, all my old stuntmen friends, and we get together. One's an actor, and one's a stuntman, one's a cinematographer. We have these luncheons. Well, we didn't last year because it was a thing, but we're starting back, and we talk about all the shows that we've worked on.
Sounds like you guys should start a podcast.
Yeah.
Just put a microphone up there.
And then we have guys, a couple of stuntmen, wondering how much they lie about stunts, how high the fall was, or how, there I was 60 feet in the air, no net, And we used to talk about girls. Now we talk about, our ailments.
Back pills.
Yeah, well. Getting up off the floor,
Well, we like to kind of end the show with, you know how Chuck sings his own theme song, obviously, right?
Yeah,
Would you be down to say, "May the eyes of the Ranger be upon you"?
Sure. You want me to say it?
Yep, go whenever you're
May
ready.
the eyes of the... Oh, ready. Yeah. May the eyes of the Ranger be upon you.
Awesome.
May the eyes of the Ranger be upon you. I like it when you laugh over it.
Yeah, so you've given us multiple options.
I'd use that one.
That's the director right there.
Yeah.
We'll have to give you credit on this episode.
Okay. Yeah. It's great talking to you guys. I love it.
Oh, no, man. Thank you so much. Well, we can't thank Michael enough for talking with us. He is a treasure trove of TV history, and I'm sure, could do podcast upon podcast on any number of the shows he's worked on. And it was really an honor to talk with him. We hope you'll join us next time when we return to our normal format, recapping and reviewing bone-crushing episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger, many of which were directed by Mr. Michael Preece himself. Be sure to share your opinions with us on Facebook and Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and Twitter at Roundhouse Pod, and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next time.
May the eyes of the Ranger be upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.